It's just starting now.
You are live streaming according to my screen.
Yeah, it kind of like sort of loads into, takes a second to actually start it. All right. Very good. We'll call to order this special meeting of the Easton Reading Region 9 Joint Boards of Education Policy Committee, October 2nd, 2020 at 9:13 a.m. Members in attendance, Chris Parkin, Maureen Williams, and John Stinson. Go to our first agenda item, which are the approval of minutes from September 11th, 2020 Easton Reading and Region 9 Boards of Education Policy Committee special meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And somewhere in there's a second. Good. Any discussion? Voting
discussion
to
or a vote?
Voting to
that was
approve.
approved.
Okay, voting to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and aye. 3-0. And motion is approved. And moving on to our next agenda item, we have public comment. Seeing as no members of the public are present, we'll move on to item number 4, committee member comment. Any comment? Okay. Hearing none, moving on to agenda item number 5, discussion and possible action for the 3000 series policy revisions. The agenda item reads as Title IX as appropriate. I don't believe we've received feedback yet on our questions on the Title IX policy. So today we'll be focused on continuing progress on the 3000 series. So I will share my screen. Okay. So as is the custom, members of the policy committee and administration review the policy and make comments in the margins for us to discuss so that we can sort of progress through the points of where there are questions or comments or contention, related to any of these policies. We are in our last session, and you're going to see a number of comments in here that are from February, which is when we started this before taking our sort of months of hiatus due to COVID. In our last conversation, we stopped right around page 30. I do want to give Maureen and Chris, did you go back and make any comments?
I don't remember.
I don't believe I have.
Okay.
I made more comments, but I don't remember where they started page-wise, John.
I saw a couple that looked like they were from, I think, September 24th.
Right.
In like before page 30. So we'll just scroll through, it appears to be scrolling fairly smoothly today. So yay for Google. So
also per custom
speed
of the policy committee, this is the point at which we ask that the screen be enlarged a little bit.
For the benefit of Maureen's eyes.
We've now increased
I can see more and more of Maureen coming closer to the screen.
We have now increased the zoom to 125%. Hearing no objection, we will scroll.
Well, at least there's laughter. It's a good thing.
That's right. Okay, and just I'm going through. I saw there were a few that we had identified duties that had not been tagged as adding to the EDD, which is an acronym for enumerated duties document. Yes, that's right. So we're trying to tag any of the items that say this person should do this, so that we have a consolidated list when we're done with this. So here, I think on August 14th, we stopped here. So I'm just going to scroll.
This is where I went back and I asked Scott what he was doing. And at some point I copied and pasted his exact email in here.
Yep, I see it here. Yep. So the implications are that this is purely a Region 9 topic?
It does appear to be purely a Region 9 topic, at least based on that response.
Okay. And that it's, we are doing something with this and et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
By the way, I also asked Gina what the current ER9 procedure is for holding cash, and she did not get back to me yet.
Okay.
She said she believed it was consistent with what was written in the policy manual, but she would get back to me and tell me for sure. And then it got lost and I did not follow.
Which
up.
policy manual?
Right.
This one.
Yeah.
Well, this is the CABE stock
Right.
policy, which might not be the Region 9 policy.
Right.
I did not cross compare. I just copied the language from here, sent it to her, said, is this what you do? She said, I think so. I'll get back to you. And then there was no follow-up by her or by me.
Okay. All right. So continuing, the gifts comment. So this looks like it's a current comment. So this is on vendor engagement, specifically talking about suppliers offering gifts to employees at different times, not intended to influence the school system's procurement practices. So Maureen, is your intent that we would prohibit members from accepting gifts of any type?
When would we want to take them? Bless you, bless you.
Bless.
I think I got the mute button in time.
You did. We only watched. Why would we need to take gifts? I mean, why would we need to take gifts? Why would employees need to take gifts? Give me some examples of when that would happen.
Yeah, I could imagine sort of tchotchkes, the stress ball type thing.
Balloons, Cabe pens.
Right. But I don't, necessarily see the value of that interaction. And it certainly seems, clean to prohibit it. I could imagine teachers going to conferences. I mean, if conferences, when there are conferences again, are anything like they are in my industry, it's fairly common that, you're walking around and you're getting pens and tchotchkes and things like that.
Here's a sample of these workbooks. Here's some books you can put in your library.
Right.
Here's
all right.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that probably does happen, and maybe even gifts of curriculum or like lesson
That's
plans.
good.
Yeah. Okay.
Delete my comment.
Okay.
Marked resolved.
Okay. Duty. Okay. This is this all regulation? I think it is. I think on September 11th when we met, this was a part of.
We realized it was actually regulation.
That's right. Yep. So we'll do that. That sort of supersedes the comments. Move to regs, so more regs, and we can see that here with the R.
There's a typo in there you might fix while you're going.
In the regs?
Deliveries to be made as requested rather than a requested. But we can do it when we deal with the regs, right?
Good. I think we were planning to relabel as non-discrimination, but that was back in February. So
I think you should just relabel them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't think the definition of non-discrimination has changed since February. So
for now.
Although,
yeah.
Save that comment for another time.
Yeah.
Staying on topic.
Delete alternative language. Oh, we've got disagreement.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, let me get some popcorn. Oh, okay. So, Maureen, actually, you prefer the alternate language.
I think I prefer the alternate language.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Sorry.
I'm rereading. Okay, I withdraw my objection.
Okay, so we'll go with this one, and
So we'll accept the alt language and remove the prior.
So we'll basically just
Just
delete
withdrew
everything
my
here.
objection, though.
So the paying for goods and services will start with and end with, right? Superintendent of or his or her designee shall be authorized to approve
Right.
for payment the current blah blah
Right.
blah. A report of these expenditures shall be made at the regular meetings of the board. Good.
Yep.
Yay. Okay. And resolved. Voluntary deductions approved by the central office. Relevant
Yeah,
to the Janice
I
decision.
was just in collective bargaining
Yeah.
and it was a big topic of discussion. So I do think central office needs to have some input in terms of the logistics of it. Having just been through collective bargaining on that issue.
So the payroll clerk shall be authorized to make all deductions from each individual pay based on law and any other deductions authorized by the individual and approved by the superintendent or his designee, or
The superintendent or his designee, I don't have a problem with. I just do think in general, we need some process that allows central office to have some input. And I don't know if your discussions went back and forth about Janice in your respective situations, but it's really connected to who calls the ball with Janice, right? There was a movement to move collective bargaining to have language that would really bind members, and we had to negotiate out of that. And
It was a fairly uncontroversial point on ours. We came to agreement quickly, but I think the point here is that the sort of, that it's consistent with the contract.
right. Both consistent with the contract and the law that develops, which may supersede whatever contractual provisions are there. I mean, there will definitely be pushback against Janice legislatively, I'm sure.
Would it make sense for us to say any other deductions authorized by the individual consistent with contracts and approved by the superintendent, his or her designee, or anything like that?
Sure.
By the individual consistent with what's the right term? Binding contracts, existing contracts?
Binding contractual provisions, right? Because I suppose you could have another decision that overrules them somehow, some way.
see now it says what this was before was that the individual says, I'm okay with you withholding for my, transit pre-tax deduction or some voluntary program. And then we have to approve the existence of that deduction.
Well, per Janice, they're all voluntary, right?
Well, all union-based deductions are voluntary.
Right.
And union-based deductions, you can't bind from now to future union-based deductions. It's got to be employee-driven, right?
Right.
So the
They have to
employee
say,
could
"I
say,
wanna take
tomorrow
it
I
out."
want out, and you got to let them out.
Right. Stop taking money out of my check for this. And
Right.
the answer is okay.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, outside the Janice context, what other sort of voluntary, I guess in theory, you could say, hey, payroll, before you pay me my $1,000 a week, can you take $100 out and put it into my 401k that I have, or my IRA that I'm maintaining separately? I want you to go do that so that I never see the money. We should be able to say, no, that's an administrative burden. You figure it out.
Right.
And I think that's what this language is trying to sort of get at, was that the board controls what voluntary deductions are permissible. I just think we need to find a more artful way to do it.
Authors make all the from each individual pay is required. So it's a function of sort of as required versus as requested. Is there, if we,
Payroll clerk is authorized to make all deductions required by state, local, or federal regulations, and any other deductions related to any employee benefits offered by the board.
Okay.
This sort of ignores the agency fee Janus issue entirely, but to the extent that at some point in the future there is a legislative direction that agency fees be taken out, that would still be a deduction required by state, local, or federal law, even though it's really out of a CBA. I think
Agreed.
it's still sort of covered there.
how's that?
Okay.
Or federal regulations and any other deductions related to employee benefits authorized by the board. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good. Great. Okay. Scrolling.
I think I clipped the whole statute if you want to expand the comment.
Oh, I see. Okay. And, but when we discussed this on the 21st, I think there was a follow-up with Scott.
I did not do this follow-up with Scott, so if that was part of
Oh,
my.
no. I think Tom followed up with Scott to make sure that this was being done per this new statute.
And is it?
Um,
More follow-up necessary.
yeah,
Well,
let me check with Tom.
I think the practical reality is that by posting the board materials on a monthly basis that show the budget object summary, we are overly compliant with this. We're not providing a summary on a quarterly basis. We're providing detail on a monthly basis.
Right.
So, is there room for discussion about having more formality on a quarterly basis to comply with, PA 19117? Maybe, but I think that's a belt and suspenders to what we've already done.
Yeah, but you're going to have someone who says the information is not in the right format and therefore is not compliant. You're always going to have that, Chris. So I do think you got to dig down.
Yeah.
We can give them more information that's digestible by us, but someone who sees that information and doesn't know how to digest it will still make the argument that it's not compliant.
Even to just think through the sort of frustration with the statutory language. On a quarterly basis, we post the board's current and projected expenditures and revenues on the internet website. Our revenues are driven by 99% by what has been approved at referendum and what we expect to receive from the municipality. So
Right.
It's not like we're talking about wild swings in revenue here.
The statute doesn't look like it was drafted for school boards, to be frank with you, right?
Yeah. And I guess they want that information to be communicated specifically to the Board of Selectmen, and to the extent that they receive our monthly financial package, it sort of is. But
I would just track what's on the web to track the statute. This is this, this is this, this is this.
Right. It's October 1st. Here's our quarterly, So that would be an enumerated duty, basically.
Yeah.
At
And
this point.
And I wonder if what it could boil down to is that on a quarterly basis within the context of our board meetings, we are simply calling that report. This version of it, this iteration of it is the quarterly package that is being delivered to the selectmen.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
And you figure out whatever the appropriate quarter schedule is. I assume on the same fiscal calendar that the state operates on. This is ultimately irrelevant, but I would prefer if the introductory clause were taken out of the policy, because all of these things that relate to future enactments of statutes that are now in the past sort of bug me in these.
Yes. Each fiscal year, the board shall.
Right.
That's for sure.
Is it the object summaries that we get?
Budget object summary, I think, is
Yep.
the one we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Word salad. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So it becomes an obligation or
Yep.
sort of duty.
Wait, that last one?
Yeah, because we
No,
now
this
said it has to be on the board's agenda. So if we're accepting that, somebody needs to be tracking it.
Yep. I'm just trying to find the line that,
Last full paragraph.
thank you. These things are so chocked full of these.
And they're easy to just glaze right over when you're reading it too.
Right. Right. Oh, that's just a little bit more work. Okay. Yeah. We combine all this stuff, even just for the 3000 series, back to the 1000, it's going to be ridiculous.
I mean, and this is a good reminder for conversations we're having about central office more broadly and
Right.
enumerating the duties of the staff there.
That's right.
These all have to get allocated into those buckets somewhere.
That's right. Actually, we should probably take a beat. Maybe we should look at next week's time and focus it on doing this, just based on sort of all the other stuff we have going on in the month of October.
Yeah.
Just
If
to,
we get through the 3000s and can say that after the 3000s we found 47 places that the superintendent has an obligation.
Yep.
That helps frame a little bit of our conversation about the central office budget too.
That's right. Yep. Okay. So I'll go back through the sort of 1 through the 3000 stuff and collect all these EDDs for next week. Regulation. I love it when I see regulation because we get to scroll. A form. Get out of here, form.
Forms are even better.
Yeah. That's great. Equal parts onerous and valuable. What?
You don't find
I
a
was a little
tipping point
punchy
in
on
here
Valentine's Day,
somewhere?
apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I remember this discussion, the idea that we'd start with the sort of big ticket items and do this, do this kind of inventory.
Yeah.
And again, this is certainly EDD.
For sure.
Huh.
I remember we had a lengthy conversation about this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's easy enough. Should we actually change this? Blank public schools, grant funding. Oh, well, I mean, does that satisfy that?
Which satisfy what?
The sort of that this is going to say Easton, Reading, or Region 9 public schools grant funding source and year, and that it will not include the students, any indication
Yes.
that the student owns it. So can we close this question out?
Yep.
Okay.
And this is actually quite relevant now as we're issuing Chromebooks
Right.
to people all over the place.
Right.
I have no idea what the labeling looks like, but I'm sure that none of it says pursuant to a CARES Act grant.
Yeah.
Although maybe it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Probably should.
Accepting your typo fixes. Thank you.
Without delay.
Okay. And do we agree with this we should be looking at the process
I did. This is what I asked Gina about.
Yep. Okay.
And I
see.
didn't follow up. So
All right.
I did
So
ask.
awaiting response from Gina. Good. Okay. Good. Yep.
I
And
think is principal going to be one of those things that we define at the outset as meaning principal, head of school, or other authorized head
Sure.
administrator of the schools?
I think so. I think so. I think that was one of the first terms that we said we would
Roll up.
Yeah, generalize. Yes, regulations. .504s. Okay. So what do we mean? This whole section should say the district shall comply. Are we replacing these 30 paragraphs with the district shall comply?
You know, I'd love to replace the entire policy book with the district shall comply, but what is that? What is Maureen's February 13th comment linked to? What section? Each? Okay.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you.
Oh, I think it's oh, okay. So the introduction to the sentence should read, the district shall comply with all aspects of. That's what
Right.
that was about.
I mean,
it is the policy of, shouldn't be in any of our policies as language.
I don't think we need to state what the policy is, right? We don't need to state that Section 504 prevents discrimination against otherwise qualified
Yeah,
individuals.
the whole paragraph is kind of garbage.
I would delete that first paragraph at this point.
Would we?
706A as opposed to 504, what's the difference? Can you educate me?
I think 706.8 is the definition of terms, probably, and 504 is those who are defined as being covered under the Rehabilitation Act.
Each of these paragraphs seems repetitive in some manner of the others, unless somebody can educate me as to why they're not. We could just start with the third paragraph. The district has a responsibility to follow the procedural requirements of Section 504. Or is
of the
one
Rehabilitation Act, you'll have to add. But yeah.
And yes, and 706A8, not A, of the Rehabilitation Act.
706.8 of the Rehab Act. I'm just going to look it up. Uh, 29 USC 706.8. The term individual with a disability means an individual who has a physical or mental impairment for which the individual constitutes or results in a substantial impediment to employment and can benefit from terms of employment outcome, vocational rehab services provided in subchapters 1, 3, 6, and 8 of this chapter. It's the term individual with a disability means any person who has a physical mental impairment that limits major life activities. It's the definition of individual with a disability.
Okay.
So I don't even think you need to call out where individual with a disability is defined to make Section 504 enforced.
Okay. Agreed.
Okay. Are
And then,
we,
then if for whatever reason we're pulling the definitions into the policy.
right?
And frankly, I am concerned about defining major life activity, for example, when that is defined by statute, regulation, and evolution of
Case law.
common law and case
Yeah.
law.
I do think, I agree with you, Chris. I think in order to ensure that the blank, from that down, you can start deleting.
Yeah.
I mean, that paragraph, you definitely don't need to say, by the way, here are the definitions.
Right.
Mhm.
I
first
don't want to get
paragraph
into an
does.
argument over what a major life activity is. A major life
Mhm.
activity is what the law says it is.
Yeah,
Okay. No, I agree.
which could change next week.
Exactly.
Right.
Next
I think
month.
these are more definitions.
Yep.
Oh, the famous committee of knowledgeable people.
Now
Which I
that
didn't
one-
know was a thing.
Can we just leave that one? I like the idea of a committee of knowledgeable people.
Can we rename the policy committee the committee of knowledgeable people?
It's such a strange
the
term.
Do you
ER9
need a
policy
motion
committee
for that renaming?
doing business as the committee of knowledgeable people.
Yeah.
This all goes too, I think.
I mean, essentially we're saying this whole 504 section is summed up with we have a responsibility to follow
Section
procedural
504.
requirements, et cetera, et cetera.
I
And
do
will
think you have
the
to.
administration, independently of this policy manual, have its own guidelines and policies that it follows such that it would never refer back to this for what it needs to do, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you scroll back up, John, I think you need to change. We shouldn't use LRE as an acronym there. We should spell out least restrictive environment. And yep, so 504, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and the reference to IDEA should probably spell out Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, or whatever the specific name of the statute is, which I think is that. Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, not in education, whatever. And I would even take out this, no, it's fine, whatever. Never mind. This is regulation and
Yep,
then
and procedure. All of this, right?
Right. This is directing to create a procedural safeguard, which is all part and parcel of complying with the statute and its regulations.
Okay. Good.
You want to resolve the comment that said we were going to redline against the current because we just basically deleted the current.
Correct. Good.
Mhm.
Moving on. Hold on. I'm just going to get this space. Okay. There we go. Okay.
Work for the superintendent. I don't remember what was going on at that point. What was Tom to do?
I think
this was just EDD stuff.
Okay.
Is another responsibility the superintendent shall establish
got
an
it.
energy efficiency program. Are we good with this? Leaving it in, Chris? I think you were suggesting possibility of removing it entirely.
passing. I think when we talked about it in February, we said that it was like a reasonable thing to be sort of moving towards,
Right.
and it wasn't super mandatory.
Yep. Okay. Good. Wait. I'm going to start closing out those stopping heres. Authorized use of school equipment. I don't think it looks like we don't have any comments here until we get down here, right? So I think there was a question about, well, first that's just stopping here, but the next one, political essentially political town committees. I think, Chris, this first one, educational programs, includes the educational organizations that have an educational benefit. Does that work?
Help me.
So I think that the question, I think you were raising a concern that political town committees would be ahead of organizations that have an educational benefit, that somehow political town committees would be ahead of them in line for use of space. But I think the educational programs is the first one that could be included, right? So
I guess the question is whether educational programs means
yeah, is it only like sanctioned or district sponsored educational programs versus a sort of enrichment program.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really sort of in the weeds and in sort of, you know,
there's enough wiggle room here. There really is.
Yeah, I mean, I have a conflict of interest there because I run an educational program, and that it's at the top of the list and I didn't put it there. Like, I'm fine with it, but you know, I started using the public library space instead of the schools when I joined the Board of Ed.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
And I can't even think of the last time a political town committee has used the schools for any purpose.
Yeah.
I think in general that was disfavored, and I mean, when
appropriately so, and just
when we've even tried to get out the vote stuff in the schools, it's been disfavored and been told no.
Right. Wait, so Maureen, you want to add we should promote smoking and vaping? I disagree. Oh wait, I read that wrong. Okay.
Just insert vaping. I think it's just back in February. That's the dark ages, relatively speaking, or maybe it's the light ages, relatively speaking. It's ancient history, February. I don't remember. I think I was in California on February 21st, 2020. Having taken a plane there.
We were holding these meetings on Google Meet.
Yeah.
Right.
Good.
Being ahead of the curve.
On school property? So on school property or in and around?
Right.
Well, it's in and around school buildings. So do you want to define it as the border of the school property?
I think you say property. Why not?
Because you could say right now that the Barlow football stadium is not in or around the school building.
Right.
Right. Say property.
Yeah.
Half a mile away.
Yeah, that's good. Vendors shall be prohibited in school buildings or on school grounds.
From smoking? Or just not?
I'm a little bit
salesman
confused. Yeah, are we saying no salesman allowed?
No soliciting is probably what this is really trying to get at. But when I hire a vendor to fix the boiler, I need him to come on the school grounds.
No, they are prohibited.
It's a real trick there.
Yeah.
I'll meet you in the parking lot with the parts. It's weird.
Don't worry, Kim. You'll figure it out. This boiler's not that complex.
I'll meet you at the ridge with the new boiler.
I think this should mean it's what's the right term? I'm not using the term solicitation.
Unrequested solicitations, but even solicitations.
Sales calls,
yeah.
But you don't even necessarily want to say sales calls are prohibited. Somebody's coming in to sell new books and they're on request.
Right.
This is a strange one, right?
Because I mean, and then to my comment in February, like we run the PTA hosts an artisan fair where they rent out tables to vendors to sell stuff.
What if it's something about unsolicited? Something about sort of like, it's like the fact that it's uninvited, right? Sort of unsolicited sales calls.
except where with permission of the school principal
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Vendors should be, with advance permission of the school principal, vendors shall.
Or his designee or her designee.
Exactly. Some kind of permission exception. So that the librarian can say, I'd really like Scholastic to come in and pitch me on whatever it is. Like,
we're kind of switching the
bless you.
with advanced permission of the school principal, we're saying vendors are allowed, right? I think we're trying to say this in the other way, right?
It's either except with advance permission, they're not, but only with advance, like, yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, good.
Activities which engender racial or religious prejudices or which are inimical to democracy are prohibited. That might be better than the Committee of Knowledgeable People.
Yeah. Inimical to democracy are prohibited. We'll see how long that one lasts. Should we put in a thing there that says as long as law allows? Okay.
I think we resolved that.
Yep. I do like that Maureen called out illegal activities are prohibited. I like that a lot. That's such a good one.
Prohibitive activities shall not be permitted.
I like that.
I mean, I think you can take out all of 6. It's ridiculous. And 1 already says we don't accept illegal activity.
Agreed.
So
whoever wrote this came out of like a 1930s textbook.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
So illegal activities will not be tolerated, and any violations may justify permanent restriction of the organization involved. Okay. But here, for 6, it specifically calls out racial and religious prejudice.
Yeah. Basically, we're not allowing bigoted organizations to use the schools.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that we say that.
Yeah.
The idea here is to give them some discretion on what constitutes racial or religious prejudice, right?
Yeah.
That might not be statutory.
Right. Yeah. Well, and also sort of non or sort of anti-democratic organizations or activities. Or is it too broad?
It's hard to define, so it's easier sometimes to say that something like this, to whom is it, to whom is an activity inimical to democracy? Well, you could have some people who think the KKK is a function of democracy and others who don't, right? And that does not mean there's fairness on both sides to me, what I just said at all. But I would delete the language because I think that the administration has the discretion anyway.
We also, we're not including racial, so we're saying racial, religious, we're not saying, discrimination based on.
I was going to say, can you just cross-reference the anti-discrimination policy and say organizations that do not comply with the board's organization non-discrimination policy?
That's very good. Could we say activities which conflict with the board's?
I like that.
Yeah. And it's like 5411 or something. It was in the footnotes on one of the policies we looked at earlier today. The CF to that.
Anti-discrimination.
Good.
And we got about 2 minutes left. Fees. This question, approved by the Board of Education. School facilities may be used by business or private groups and organizations in accordance with the fee schedule established by the superintendent of schools.
What fee schedule?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like when the Scouts do Pinewood Derby, I don't think they pay.
They do if it's on the weekend, and they pay the custodial
Or the
overtime.
custodial fee. Yeah. That's right.
But the Scouts are a bad example because there's a federal statute about access for the Scouts.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Are we concerned with keeping this language in?
I was flagging it as if we're saying that there needs to be a fee schedule approved by the board, and then one of the administrators says the XYZ group can come in, but I'm gonna charge them $100 a week.
Right.
And then the XYZ group says, wait a second, can you show me in the minutes when that fee schedule was approved? We have a conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it would be a bad practice on an annual basis. Like when we do the healthy food certification every June or whatever it is, can we also approve the annual rates at which the facilities are available?
Right. There's this fee specifics section. This is actually pretty similar to what the library has on their site, except so no fee.
Pay associated cost.
Right. But it doesn't actually have the fees. Oh, okay. Rental fee and associated costs and credit. So we just don't have.
So here the
this.
schedule is established by the superintendent. A page
Right.
before it was established by the superintendent and approved by the board.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a conflict there.
Look, I don't think the board needs to approve this fee schedule. I'm fine with the superintendent of schools alone approving this fee schedule. Are you?
As long as it's published.
Right.
As long as it's published, applied consistently, and there's no statutory reference down below that's saying for some reason we need to be involved.
Exactly.
We're talking about a de minimis amount of income in the grand scheme. I think the biggest fees are probably sports league to the high school.
Yeah. Fee schedule established by the superintendent and published on the district website. And then
I would just leave it there.
Yeah.
I don't want to create an obligation where we don't need to, but I think it could be an operating expectation that it be published.
Yeah. Okay. So now those two connect. Good. Priority list is articulated earlier.
Well, I think it's a question of
specific to Scouts?
Where do these folks fit? And does the priority list above create a problem by putting them below in any list, basically?
Is there in the sort of statute that in sort of where we see this requirement, is there a sort of expectation of prioritization?
Well, it's right there, 22 USC 4071.
Yeah.
20. It should be unlawful for anybody receiving federal funds to deny equal access or fair opportunity to any students who wish to conduct a meeting within the limited open forum on a basis of religious, political, philosophical, or other content of speech at meetings. I thought that was the Scout specific statute, but maybe not.
Maybe we stop here and we take a look at this as we move forward.
Yep. And I think the fair opportunity part of that seems like it covers it. But okay. So stopping here into, let's put the year because you never know.
And John, I'm putting the link to the statute in the chat. If you could just put it into a comment while that'd be helpful.
Yep. It won't let me copy from there.
Really?
Yeah, it's okay. It's an easy enough one. Okay. Seeing as we are stopping here, we will go to public comment. There's nobody here. Move to member comment.
May next week be less interesting than this week.
Very good. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Good.
Second.
Good. We are adjourned at 10:04 a.m.
See you
Thanks.
next week.
See you next
Thank
week.
you, guys.
See you.